Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Tribe family. Welcome to our Tribe Conversations. And we are running an anti bullying campaign called Plastered, where we just want to create awareness around this topic, which continues to be a huge problem in today's age and time. Thank you so much for joining us. And with us in the studio today, we have the incredible Jolese Geldenhys, aka Jojo. Welcome, Jolese. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Greg. Awesome being here. I can't say it's awesome being in your studio because I actually do work here. So it's not my first time.
Awesome stuff, but it's still awesome having you in the studio. And thank you so much for your willingness to share your story around this topic. But before we go on, can you please share with all our listeners, who is Jolese Geldenhys?
So my name is Jolese, and I am currently a communications coordinator at Unashamedly Ethical, also working with Greg for Tribe. And so, we promote ethics, values, and clean living under this generation and the next.
You know, you shared something that's very important, promoting ethics on this generation and the next. And young people are the next generation. And we are at risk of losing an entire generation if we do not invest in them today. And one of the biggest challenges they face in today's age and time is bullying. Bullying is such a big topic. Young people from age 6, 7 experience bullying. And even in the workplace, they experience bullying. And I know, you have expressed a bit of passion for this topic. Can you please share with our listeners, why are you passionate about bullying?
Well, first of all, I feel like we tend to be passionate about something that we ourselves had encountered before. And so for me, I have been bullied, or I was bullied when I was younger. And it just has such a big influence on who you become because especially verbal bullying, it's lies that gets spoken over you, people telling you what you are not. And if you were to believe that, that can influence the whole direction of your life and who you become and what you do.
Bullying really tends to impact. It does impact every facet of your life, from your emotional well-being, your mental well-being, sometimes physically. And you mentioned that it's something that that people tend to share it from develop that passion because they've encountered bullying before. Can you maybe share with us, what was your experience with bullying, and how did that impact your life?
Yeah, so when I was younger in school, I was a bit of a chubby child, and I was also a little bit of a tomboy. Growing up on the farm and everything like that. So I think there was 2 incidents. I remember we had a bus that we drive to school with from the farm. It was a few kids from the farm area, and every day there was this period where every day this kid would make fun of me. He would just call me names, tease me about my weight, about being fat. And then at school it would be the same situation. There was this kid, and I specifically remember, it's so funny, up until today, him calling me an elephant. Wow. I'm as big as an elephant. So it was these words. So those were so it's not a very in detail, in depth, story. But I remember every morning, having to get into the bus, having to go to school. I would dread this because I knew getting in that bus, I would get bullied. I would be called names. I'll get to school again, being bullied. And it was just up until one day, and I got home, and I just completely I was young. I was still in I think. Well, I wasn't in high school yet. I think it was around grade 3, grade 4, 5, around there. And I just one day I was somebody that I wouldn't really cry a lot. I was tough when I got home and didn't show my parents. But one day I just started crying because I literally I couldn't take it anymore. And so my mom actually, my mom wasn't somebody that usually would my parents raised me as you fight your own fights, the parents don't get involved and stuff. But that day, and she wasn't somebody that's very confrontational, but she went to this kid's mom and she was like, listen, this has to stop. And actually surprisingly the next day, he stopped. So, he didn't bully me like on the way to school and stuff anymore. Well, he stopped the verbal bullying, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And would you say that, that experience, because sometimes we look at the action that's happening, we look at, one person, dominating or manipulating or intentionally hurting the other person, but we don't always look at the emotional, impact that bullying has. What would you say was the impact, emotionally or mentally that that experience had on you, in terms of maybe confidence, in terms of trying out new things? I don't know. What was the impact on you as a young girl?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm a firm believer in, whatever you hear every day, what gets spoken over you and what you say over yourself or what people says about you, that really you start believing that. Like, you start believing that is who you are. If somebody were to tell you every day that you are good at something, you would really believe that you're good at it. If somebody tells you, oh man, like, you've got such a beautiful voice. And even if I don't, I'll probably sing everywhere I go because I believe that. And so for me, that really had a big influence on my confidence in terms of like my self-image. Mm-hmm. So, and sometimes even up until this very day, like, you get confronted about like with those voices of, oh, you're not pretty enough, or you're overweight, or whatever that might be. So there's this voice in the back of your mind. You hear those voices, their voices of saying who you are. Like, and at the end of the day, I think if we look at bullies, whatever it is that they say to you, that person that's being bullied feel like they are not good enough. So whether that's being because of the way you look, the way you talk, the way you dress, it's just like you don't feel worthy, you don't feel good enough. So it really does have an influence on your self-confidence. And I think the biggest thing is identity. I am a believer of Christ and I love Jesus a whole lot. And if it wasn't for him and getting to know who he says that I am, I probably would have still been struggling with that. And I always think of a sculptor, with a piece of clay. So if you think of the impact that words have, if you were to see words as something that chips away at a piece of clay, so that piece of clay then becomes whatever, whether it's a pot, whether it's, a sculpture of a person's face, but that adds to that picture. And so whatever the words is being added, that is what creates that. So good, bad, bullies, whatever it was, now you have to go and you have to remove those words again, what was spoken over you. And the only way that you can do that is it's to affirm the good things. So, you are beautiful, you are good enough, whatever that might be. And that is the one thing that I believe it's so, so important to know who you are. And so the words that other people speak over you, what bullies do is these words start forming what you believe to be your identity. And it's not, because they don't know who you are. And what they say can't determine who you are or where you are going, but only the God who created you. And so it's so important to have something that is that force that drives you, and something that kind of guides you and who you are. Like, how do you know who you are? Like, where do you, like those kids that's being bullied, what's the counter to the bad things that people are saying over you? And who's those people that's speaking good things into your life? Because you need that. Otherwise, we won't believe in ourselves.
Bullies speak words over you. There's voices saying things about you. It's about deciding, which voices are you going to believe? Which voices are you going to allow to determine, who you are? Because no matter how beautiful you are, no matter how amazing you are, there's always going to be somebody who's going to have something bad to say about you. But you need to you need to make a choice. Who are you going to believe? And like you shared, you found your sense of identity and self-worth in your maker, in your relationship with God. and you choose till today. You choose to believe what he says about you. Awesome, that's so good. Jolese, during that time where you were experiencing bullying, obviously it went on for a time before you came out and shared with your parents about it. Would you say that there were other people at school on the bus who saw it happening? And what is the type of help, that you wish you would have received during that time, instead of people just looking at it?
Yeah, so I think people sometimes are so scared to stand up, right? Even if you take yourself, because they probably know that they would then also get bullied. But I remember there was actually one girl in the bus, and we still talk today. I remember whenever I see, I say, I remember how you stood up for me, and she. There was this where it also just got. She was like, okay, now this is now enough, and she just. She probably was a bit of a bully in her own way as well, I guess. But she was just really confident in who she was. So she just told this guy to shut up and be like, you need to stop this now. So she would always stand up for me. And that was really something that meant a lot. And, I think we really more people need to do that. Because if you standing there and just seeing something like that happening, you're just as good as the bully. I mean, you are part of that, not doing anything. And I guess people are scared to stand up or to, like I said, because then they also would get bullied. But the reality is, the thing about bullies is that we have the saying, I know we've spoke about this in our previous campaigns, about hurt people hurt people. And that's all it is. So, I mean, they come across as very confident. And today, me sitting where I am now, knowing who I am, and being confident in that, I can look at that person and I can see actually more of the hurt than the bully. And it's just actually sad because they do it because they are hurting in some way, shape or form. They probably maybe getting, bullied at home, or maybe even abused, or maybe they went through something really traumatic and they just don't know how to deal with it. And that's why I believe, and I'm going a bit off topic probably of what your question is, but that's why it's so important to have platforms like this where people can speak up. Because if you don't have a space where you can speak up, if I did not have the opportunity to, or if I didn't decide to tell my parents and to just not allow it to, to have a negative effect on me, then I could have become a bully as well. And sometimes we do without noticing it, because then you start picking on people that's weaker in you in a sense. So people see it as a weakness. But it's so important to be able to speak about, what is happening in your life. Because at the end of the day, the bullies are also just hurting. Because if you don't speak up, you sit with those things in your own head. And you don't, I believe, a familiar of bringing things into the light. Because when you put something into the light, it can be seen and it can be dealt with and you can start healing. And so I believe this is what these campaigns that we do, that's what it creates. It creates this opportunity for youth to have a voice, to not be silenced, to speak up and to say, listen, I am struggling, I am hurting. And then you realize, you're really not alone. And I think that's the funniest thing. Everybody sits in their own little world in the silence and they think that they're by themselves. They think they're alone and they're the only one going through this and nobody would understand, because that's once again those voices in your head and what the enemy tries to tell you, what the bully tells you, but you're not. There's so many people going through the same stuff. There's so many people hurting. It might be different situations in different ways. So I believe that these campaigns actually just, it helps us to unsilence, which is not probably the right thing to call it, but literally just taking that lid off of it and saying, you know what, let's talk about it. And it's okay to talk about it. And you're not going to be alone when you talk about it, because then you'll realize, oh man, there's actually this whole community of people that's going through the same stuff. And then you kind of find a community of people that's, like-minded, people that can stand with you for the same thing, people that can help you. Once again, a firm believer in, you can ask my friends, the one thing that I say the most, and they'll probably be so annoyed, is that you become who you surround yourself with.
Come on.
And So now all of a sudden when you start speaking up and we create this platform for people that are similar and have the similar interest or even going through the same situation, now all of a sudden you're surrounded by people that can uplift you, people that can, speak life into you and speak positivity into you. So
good.
that's why I think these things are so important, these campaigns, these platforms, to really create that space for the youth to not feel alone anymore.
Wow. Yeah. And as we, close off this this conversation, there's lots of kids out there experiencing bullying. What word of encouragement, would you like to give somebody like that?
You are not what the bullies say you are. Like their words, and that does not determine who you are. Like you were created by God, and you are your own person. No matter what anybody says, that cannot determine who you are. Like you and what you believe of yourself, that is what will determine where you go, how you see yourself, nobody else. So, and then I would just encourage people to affirm yourself. Like, look in the mirror if you have to and say that you are beautiful and you are good enough, and believe that. And then surround yourself with friends and people that uplifts you, that encourages you, and that really sees the best in you and just wants the best for you. So it will be those three things.
Awesome stuff. Jolese, thank you so much for taking the time to really just share your story around this issue, and I really hope that that people listening out there will be encouraged by this. It's really so good that we shed light on this topic. And in closing, Desmond Tutu said that if you are neutral in the face of injustice, then you have taken the side of the oppressor. So really just encouraging people not to keep quiet about this, but to stand up. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome. Well, it was awesome being home.
Tribe family, thank you so much for joining us on our anti-bullying campaign episode with Jolese Geldenhys called Plastered. I hope that this podcast will encourage you to take a stand against bullying. We're so excited to see the impact that we will make in this generation of young people. See you guys on our next episode of our anti-bullying campaign called Plastered.